Hello, everybody. Today we're going to talk about this massive news that Swift partners with Ripple. This is big news that we want to take a look at. Also, there's a Quant connection. We can't leave Quant out. They're all over the place. So this is what we're going to look at today. Isn't that right, Max?
That is right, guys. And before we jump into everything, we just kindly ask you, it's free. Smash the like. It does trigger the algorithm. We do a lot of this content for free. We understand there's new people, and that's fine. Hopefully, we can earn your subscription. And on top of that, not your keys, not your crypto. The decent wallet benefits both channels for myself and Will. So we're going to play that, and we'll jump right back.
Hopefully, you're not leaving your cryptocurrency on the exchanges. Exchanges can fail and get hacked. If you don't own the keys to your coin, then you're not in custody of your coin. Someone else is. Be sure to get yourself a cold storage wallet. I suggest the Decent Wallet after having owned several different wallets. I like the Decent Wallet. I like the easy access with the thumbprint. I love the features inside, how it Bluetooths with my phone and gives me a large screen. Also like how I can order two. I use one for a moon bag, coin I'm not going to touch for maybe years. I use the other one as just my regular wallet. You can order two for $219, that's $99 off. Or you can order one if you wish. When you order, your shipping is free if you live in the US, the UK, the EU, or Japan. Order one today. I think you'll be satisfied. To order now and get the discount, you can use the link that's appearing above my head. There's also a link in the description, and generally there's one at the end of all my videos. Go ahead and order now. You'll be satisfied.
All right, welcome back. So I'm going to share with you guys some recent announcements. And this one, believe it or not, comes from a blockchain magazine. Now, you got to see it for yourself. It mentions specifically here Ripple crypto partners with Swift. Now, you may feel as though that, hey, you know what, been here, done that. But listen, there's a little bit more to it. Sometimes we need to check multiple sources. I don't know if you guys ever went to college back in the day. You're going to have just one source. You got to have a few, right? At least two or more. So before we get into more of the sources, I thought I'd bring this to you guys. So as we full screen this, we see here, plain as day, that, like it says, this is a new era in global payments, and like it mentions, February 9th, literally yesterday. Ripple teaming up with Swift says it's game changer. Swift, known for its massive network, new standard for how money moves across borders, but key word is standards. What are some of the takeaways in regards to this? Well, basically speaking, it's that Ripple and Swift have in fact joined forces. Sounds crazy. A lot of you guys have pointed out in the past that, yeah, this was inevitable. With Swift, they kind of needed to do something like this because if they didn't, they're going to get quote unquote left behind. And I truly believe that when it comes to Swift, I think Chainlink is going to be the one that saves them. That's just my own takeaway from my own research. I know a lot of you guys hold Chainlink and so on. I know Will does as well. But wherever the case be, that's my own key takeaway. But who says that Swift only has to choose one? All right, getting a little bit more into this, I want to point out some other key things, and that is how Ripple's technology enhances, of course, Swift. So it allows seamless transactions between different currencies and financial institutions. This not only reduces costs, but also increases transparency, security, making it a perfect fit for Swift's needs. But at the end of the day, guys, think about why that is. It's the coexistence period of Swift's MT messaging and ISO 222. They won't coexist. One will take the cake, and that is ISO 222. So for the United States, as we highlight in the other video, that will be March 10th of this year. Then the full mandate for the worldwide conglomerates, if you want to call it that, is November, and this time, not just, hey, sometime in November 22nd of 2025. Okay, so that's big in itself because we know that when it comes to messaging, now you're not going to have truncated messages. And if anything, I want to talk about this for a brief bit before we get back into it. And this is something we don't normally do, but we got to give a shout out to ourselves, brother. If it wasn't for Medal of Honor Allied Assault, you and I never would have met over 25 years ago, something like that,
Yeah.
close to that. So if you remember, you were a server admin. And remember how those log files would get so big? If they got so big, Will, the messages would truncate, and then it would create what is garbled up messages and so on. So think about that. That is old technology. ISO 222, according to the documentation, Will, solves that. So again, an example, Will, and that is, I use this all the time. The Bank of Seoul decides, hey, guess what? Bank of Greece, the country Greece, you guys are in trouble. We're going to send you $10 trillion on a cross-border payment. And we're going to do it with ISO 222, but we're going to do it with Ripple, XRP. But the difference is when you borrow that $10 trillion, as documented in the past, you guys look it up for yourself, instead of that central bank of Seoul getting taxed for $10 billion, or I should say $60 billion. That was the one. It was a $10 trillion, $60 billion. So $60 billion in fees because it's on this old technology. And they had to call up the guy, across the world saying, man, you know what? The message that you sent, it got truncated. And I don't know of all the details, but where the case be, we don't speak Greek and you don't speak Korean. We have a problem. So as the saying goes, time is money. This solves this. In the past, think about this, everybody. So many banks, the big banks, they wouldn't move this amount of money all the time. They would only do it like what, once, twice a year? Think about this. The difference now moving forward is that the big banks will be incentivized not to just move money like never before, but to move a lot of money like never before. And a lot of money means back to the whole thing of what Will was mentioning earlier, you guys, his hose analogy. So think about that. Where's the snake and so on, like a snake swallows a big gerbil or a hamster. Well, this time, that darn snake is not just a snake. Maybe it's the biggest snake of them all. Maybe it's a giant anaconda. And that giant anaconda wants to swallow, let's call it BlackRock, right? Let's say that they're the anaconda, and they want to swallow a great big giant alligator. Well, think about it. It's just kind of like a chart, a graph. That would cause a great big spike in literally in that belly of that anaconda. Well, then how about other anacondas now getting on board? The point is a lot of money being moved, quite a bit. I want you to inject on this because you've done such an eloquent job of explaining your hose theory. For me, there is a shift that's literally happening this year, my friend.
Yeah, it's really the ever shrinking supply of XRP. Their original intent was for XRP to be used for cross border. They didn't intend for ETFs to come along, snatch up a bunch of coins and use them over here, use them over there. We got 11 to 15 different ETFs. They're going to have piles of XRP that cannot be used for cross-border transactions. So that decreasing supply, you have an escrow account with only the available coins that I did in the video. There's so many with a lockup period, the 40-month lockup, because they turn around 800 million and stick back in there. Those are locked up for 40 months. So you have there's about 9 billion coins available in escrow, I believe it is, that are available for immediate use. And then you have about 7 billion on the exchanges. The rest are in people's wallets. So unless they start releasing some of them, there's 30 something billion coins that have been locked up for more than a year in people's wallets. When you start looking at that and you think, man, here comes 11 ETFs to snatch away more. Yeah, we got, we got all of these giant transactions that are getting ready to have to take place with this small pool of money. There's not enough XRP. I showed in a video where we're sold out. We're sold out at current prices. The current prices cannot accommodate what's coming. It's impossible. The numbers don't add up. It has to go up. The minimum it could be, just to play with the smallest of numbers, excluding all things that would happen because of supply and demand, as far as you and me wrestling to buy some more and people selling and it driving the price up. Eliminating that, just going with raw numbers, and let's pretend that everybody was okay with XRP jumping in there and grabbing the ones that are available and using them for the current situation. Okay, without any competition, XRP would have to be at $9. Okay, it would have to be just to accommodate what's already coming in actual numbers. So yeah, I see this. The analogy is, if you had 10 hoses all coming together, going through one center hose, and then you had on the other side of that center hose the 10 hoses going to the sources. So you had point A and point B. That center hose needs to accommodate all 10 of these pipelines. So it's going to have to swell up and be bigger, as big as 10 times, the other size. So it's going to accommodate what we got coming on. XRP obviously has to be much higher. That's why I always do. We've done consistent videos on XRP 10,000 plus. There's not enough coins, Max. There's not enough XRP at current prices. It's going to be jacked up so high, it's going to make us all very, very happy.
Yeah, you pointed out, roughly, I think it was like 6 billion, give or take, is the actual amount that's out there, when you take into account all of the above. Guys, you are more than welcome to take a look into Will's videos that he explains. I think if anything, check out his freeway analogy video. When you go to his channel, it's literally at the front right there for you. I want to jump into a little bit more in regards to our findings, and I want to pull this back up for you guys before we jump into the announcements straight from the Swift side. So some people do ask about the whole thing of Swift. If people feel as though that were the original backbone of, messaging layer for cross-border payments and so on. Check this out for yourself. When we get into the weeds of Swift being the backbone of global banking, like it says, they're not just sitting idle. This whole narrative that they're going to go away or they won't be around in 5 years, I think they realize that. And I think that they realize in order for them to survive, they have to do like a partnership with your Ripples, or obviously they have a thing with Chainlink and some of these other ones, right? So look what it says in regards to the United States. It says specifically here, even though it's not highlighted, as governments worldwide begin to recognize the benefits of blockchain tech, regulatory clarity is slowly emerging. This clarity opens doors for digital currencies to gain broader acceptance. The U.S. digital asset policy, you may have never heard about this, is paving the way for XRP's potential mainstream adoption. Think about these terms. How many times do people point out that XRP is never going to get the job done because of the whole thing with the SEC? Once that's finally over, and I know people are worried out with it, I think, if anything, we'll see these prices to cause these assets, such as XRP, to get absolutely sent. So with that said, what about Ripple and Swift? Well, their innovations are not just about technology, but creating a more efficient and inclusive global financial system. But it starts with messaging. And on top of that, let's face it, when it comes to the whole thing of Swift and XRP, look what it says. XRP's ability to settle transactions in seconds is, of course, game changer. But for banks and financial institutions that traditionally rely on slower systems like, let's face it, Swift with the MT messaging model, it means instant liquidity. Don't ever forget about the original product of XRP, the on-demand liquidity. Speed, settlement, mere seconds, with finality, by the way. All right, so as we jump more into this, believe it or not, Swift updated the website yet again. And why is this important? Well, look what it says here. And this is where we are going to inject not just Ripple, but Quant. Why? Well, APIs, that's why. Unlocking endless possibilities. As we mentioned, payment pre-validation, and there is your key term to not forget moving forward, uses APIs to source high-quality data in real time. APIs have another use case here. What about multiple use cases? Look at this. This will give banks the tools they need to build pre-validation into their payments. Again, this term about pre-validation. And just to give you guys peace of mind, what about transferring larger amounts around the globe? Again, back to why I mentioned that whole thing about truncation of messages through the old system, and gave you the example of myself and Will with Medal of Honor Allied Assault and those long, huge log files, right? Multiple gigs. And moving forward, I want you guys to understand that, like it says, be part of our frictionless future. Join the community today. Well, where do they come up with these terms? Is it just Swift mentioned the whole thing of a frictionless future? Well, that's where we get into the whole thing of Quant. Last month in January, they got this whole thing of payments in 2025, adapt or get left behind. Was this a direct message to the likes of Swift and so on? I think so, because when we get further into it, we see here where it all started. Believe it or not, Greg Lunt, who does great coverage, mentions how this started, and it's the Internet Engineering Task Force, IETF, Quant Network. Martin Hargreaves, who's the CPO, confirmed an implementation of Overledger plus SATP. If you guys are new to all this terminology, SATP stands for Secure Asset Transfer Protocol, but it's API gateways. And back then, they finished third out of 120 submissions at the latest Swift hackathon. Now, at Quant, look at what they mention here. I'll play this, draw your own conclusion, and then we'll connect it to the new recent update on why this all matters when it comes to not just Ripple and Swift, but Quant and Swift. Listen to this. Here we go.
At Quant, what we did last month, we were in a hackathon. We implemented SATP in its draft form. So the hackathon was run by Swift. For those that don't know Swift, all the banks in the world own it. It's got about 22,000 owners, and they provide highly resilient messaging services for the whole financial services industry. So the hackathon had two things. One was about custody. Didn't really care about that. The other one was about interoperability between networks. We do care about that. That's kind of what we do. The Quant piece on there is labeled Gateway, and SATP is how we connected these things. And this one was two different networks representing effectively a source and a destination. There's about 120 participants in it. BNY Mellon won it in the end because they throw a lot of money at it. We were joint third with NatWest.
Okay, so with that said, I want you guys to think about this. Okay, so BNY Mellon, we know about Ripple and BNY Mellon. We know about Quant and BNY Mellon. We also know that when it comes to this, Martin Hargreaves mentions about the whole thing of the two ledgers. How about a shared ledger? So a shared ledger would be two, private and public and permissionless. Think about that. And what do we also know with our research over the last 3 years? Basically, it's like this in a nutshell. There's a thing called the Regulated Liability Network, the RLN. And this is where Ripple comes into the mix, because if you have the RLN, that's the Quant mix with the interoperability. But when it comes to settlement, you have the Regulated Settlement Network. This is where Ripple, XRP would shine, because as we know, we're not going to settle in QNT. QNT will be used for the interoperability as far as the subscription-based model for all these APIs to connect it everywhere, right? And that's a standard in itself. But Ripple would truly be the 3 to 5 seconds with finality, to say the least, Will. So before we kick it into the next thing of what we have here, when Martin Hargreaves mentions this from a few years ago, Will, about, guess what? They don't care about the custody, right? We have lots of exchanges that could do either custody or, heck, we sell the Decent wallet, right? Where you could take self-custody. But again, the Quant connection with interoperability and Swift shows it right in that video. That's why we highlighted. Again, your thoughts.
Yeah, it just looks like they've made it fast and easy. They're, pre-approval. They have a hands-free system that they're setting up through API. So they're streamlining this. So having transactions that could take 3, 5, 10 seconds, both ends getting the one end using the currency they want to use, the other end cashing out into the currency that they want. It's a reality. They have made that a reality through the potential that they've created here. So when the so-called flip of the switch happens, it's ready to go. They're showing us it's ready to go. So they're not just drawing a date, and saying, hey, this is when compliance has to be. They're actually created a workable, usable, fast system that's going to employ all of the banks to be able to send the money and get it done on those dates. Pretty incredible.
It is pretty incredible. I want to use this as an analogy. You're so good with, your analogies about the hose theory and so on. So I want to give you guys my own little perspective and also piggyback off of Will. So my thing is this. You have this whole concept with Quant with the gateways. All right, API gateways and so on. It's like, literally think about that. You know, when we talk about the hose theory, it's like, yeah, or as I would call it, a snake, right? A big anaconda or whatever the case be, eating alligator, but it creates, that visual of like, wow, it's expanding. So again, the hose expanding, a big giant thing just passed through it. Well, a big giant thing of what? Volume, liquidity, and so on, whatever you want to refer to it as. But when we talk about gateways, right now, a lot of people are mentioning like there's not a lot of price action when it comes to quant. Well, of course not. Think about this. If we talk about those gateways and we talk about liquidity, I'm looking at it from the perspective of what about like Indiana Jones, for example? He goes into a tomb or some kind of dungeon or whatever the case be, and now all this water is filling up the room, right? And he's trying to get out, but he has to find that button or that switch to allow, hear me out, the door to open or the gate to rise up, and for he can have a way to get out, right? So when I look at quant and this API gateway everything, the way I look at it is when we have that regulations finally passed, we're talking about so many doors and so many floodgates, if you want to call it, or so many dams where they're all blocked off. Everything's been blocked off. But what would lift up each and every one of these doors? That's my perspective, and I think that has tremendous value in itself. And combined with a limited supply of roughly 14.88 million tokens, less supply than BTC. I mean, Quant has to have an incredibly high value moving forward. I want to get your brief thoughts before we kick it into a little bit more from the Swift website for these updates, everybody.
One of my best friends, that through just being younger, growing up, playing D&D and just all the different things we did in high school. Phil Sieg is his name. He created a cell phone company. And back when cell phones, were first getting created, the towers would have so many channels. So AT&T, let's say they had 10,000 phones, they would have 10,000 channels, and T-Mobile might have 10,000 channels, but what they found was there was a guy that discovered, he's like, they're not using all of those channels at the same time, all of these companies. What if I came up with a switching mechanism? Looks like they're using about 30% of these channels at a time. So what he created was a switch system so that those channels could be used only when necessary. In other words, they could reduce down the number of channels they were paying for down to 30%, and just throw in an extra 5 or 10% for high volume. And the switching mechanism would use the empty channels to channel the phone calls. And this to me, and it revolutionized, that switch system just revolutionized that's why cell phone prices came down so much, behind the scenes. And this is kind of what Quant has done, is they have this API, basically switching mechanism that you stick whatever you want in on one end, and it crosses over whatever network it needs to cross, switches channels, and becomes what you need it on the other end, basically. They've created something that keeps all of the banks and institutions from needing all of the different sources and ways to pay. They can just have Quant, and whatever they have will work with it. And the brilliance of that is, as we get closer and closer to mass adoption, the brilliance of that's becoming more and more clear for people, because he solved a problem that didn't exist yet. That problem is now already solved. And I think that's why we always see Gilbert Verdian just mixed up in every kind of way. He's everywhere, talking to everybody that's moving money, because he carries the solution. And so when you were talking, that's what I was thinking. I was like, wow, yeah, he's created a so-called switching mechanism to adopt this entire new environment that's coming, will be able to operate. And with only 14 million coins in their tokenomics, and they're $89 today.
Yeah, about
My God.
14.88 million. Yeah, I mean, give or take,
That coin is going to talk about a moonshoot. It is going to probably, surpass Bitcoin in its pricing, because 14 million coins. Well, there's 350 million people in the United States. There's only 14 million Quant coins.
that's definitely one way of looking at it, right? Yeah, that's something else. I think that the supply shock is imminent on the short term. I always shake my head when I see people wanting to day trade Quant, but it is what it is. None of this is financial advice. We just provide you guys research. Listen, guys, we want to jump into this because we don't want to make this an hour deep dive, but where the case be, you got to see this for yourself. So I'm going to take you over to the Swift site. Excuse me. And what about live trials? What about live trials? Look at this for yourself. This is really something. So, for one, Swift mentions this in their update that starting next year, literally, like we're right here, banks across North America, Europe, Asia will embark on live trials of digital assets and currency transactions over the Swift network. Now, think about this for a second. Don't overthink about it. We already have examples of this going on as we speak with Ripple XRP, especially when it comes to Japan. Will and I have been talking about this quite a bit. So that's just Japan. Now this gets better. As we get further into this, I want you guys to see this. The ability to execute digital asset and currency transactions over the SWIFT network is moving from experimentation to reality. Starting in 2025, or in 2025, global financial institutions will have the ability to use SWIFT's global platform to conduct pilot transactions for the settlement of digital assets and currencies. Oh boy. I imagine what that could be. Maybe the regulated liability network, maybe the regulated settlement network. Yes, we already been there, done that. But the trials demonstrated how financial institutions can transact interchangeably across both existing emerging assets and currency types using their SWIFT connection. And of course, you see some of the quotations about some of this stuff, but whatever the case be, I want you guys to understand that you have this person from Swift, and he mentioned specifically with their vast global reach, they are uniquely positioned to bridge both emerging and established forms of value. But how? At the end of the day, you could claim to be a pioneer, but if you're a pioneer who didn't adapt, you got nothing. You don't have jack diddly squat. So look at this reference. Currently, 134 countries are exploring CBDCs, and at the size of the tokenized asset market, their forecast is that Standard Chartered, and we know about Standard Chartered and Ripple and Standard Chartered and some of the other ones we talk about, I think even, XLM and so on, but it's to rise as high as 30 trillion by 2034. 91% of institutional investors say they're interested in investing in tokenized assets, according to a survey from Celent and BNY Mellon, which BNY Mellon, I believe, is in both Ripple and also Quant. So interesting to see this, right? Constant references, of course, to 2025. And this is where it gets really good, because sometimes some people feel as though that I might be talking out of my you-know-what when it comes to Quant and RLN. So guess what, everybody? Boil it, mash it, stick it in stew. Once again, what do we see right here? We are investigating how interlinking capabilities can integrate emerging bank-led networks such as the U.S., yes, it says U.S., not Euro, regulated settlement network with traditional financial systems. Think about that, everybody. Swift has also recently been named as a participant in Project Agora. We know about Project Agora and Quant, a bank for international settlements led project exploring integration of tokenized commercial bank deposits and tokenized wholesale CBDCs on a unified platform. My God, Will. 11,500 financial institutions, and it talks about all of this, about the migration, and, it's there. Now, before I kick it over to you, brother, I want you guys to see this. Where do we have Visa into the mix? Well, Visa, everybody, has been killing it. We know about Quant and Visa. We know about Hedera and Visa. We know about Stellar and Visa. Heck, we know about Hedera and MasterCard. And, MasterCard and Stellar, all right, and some of these other ones. But now we're talking about the whole thing of Swift, Visa, about Ripple. Check this out for yourself. At the end of the day, seeing is believing. Visa has this segment about enhancing customer satisfaction with payment pre-validation. Earlier in the outline, I put some emphasis on this. Why did I do that? Well, it's because of this. Seeing is believing. Listen to this for yourself. Draw your own conclusion. Swift, Ripple, Visa. Here we go.
When we launched Visa B2B Connect, the types of pain points that we were looking to solve for were things around predictability, transparency, finality, removing a lot of the friction that's been in place in cross-border payments and that the industry has really been looking to solve. What we were looking to do was to do our share and contribute to help solving that on behalf of our financial institution clients. And when we looked at SWIFT, which is another large global network, just like Visa is a large global network, we thought it would be a terrific partner to work with to together help bring some of this benefits of better predictability, better transparency to life for our mutual financial institution clients. Swift's payment pre-validation service is terrific. If you look at a big pain point across cross-border payments, it's what happens if there's a mistake. It could be an account number, it could be a name, it could be a fat finger error, and a lot of times, if you don't check, you don't find out until the payment arrives at the beneficiary bank. And by then, it arrives, the beneficiary bank can't apply the payment, and there's manual work. There's whether it's a phone call, whether it's an email, a message, whatever it happens to be, there's work, there's expense, there's time, there's uncertainty. It's not good for the banks, it's not good for the sending company or the beneficiary. And so to the extent that you can prevent that and prevent that up front, you can really get a situation where an ounce of prevention prevents a pound of pain or a pound of hassle. And for us, with pre-validation, that was the type of service and the type of capability that we wanted to offer to our clients. I don't know that any one offering has really figured out how to do it all. So for us, what we're looking at is what can we do where we can partner with multiple different pre-validation offerings and try to make sure that maybe one might cover a certain geography or one might have a certain depth or whatnot. And how do we make sure that by using multiple services that we can bring the best to bear to really address some of these challenges around friction or predictability or transparency and deliver the best possible service to our clients.
Okay, guys, fast tracking through this. I want to show you guys this. So you saw the gentleman from Visa. Look at this on the screen, just a basic search. Does Visa and Ripple have a partnership? Yes, Visa and Ripple have a partnership to use XRP in crypto debit cards. Shout out to our friend in the community, Michael Cornwell. He said at some point, he said it's 3 years ago, you will swipe your debit card and not even realize it's tied into crypto. This is literally happening. Okay, Visa bought Ripple's partner, Currency Cloud, $900 million deal with $925 million directed towards Ripple-related entities and an additional $250 million in another company with Ripple. Yeah, Visa and Ripple. All right, check this out. Here's another one. We mentioned the whole thing about Kuwait. Will Fix and I did this outline a while back in regards to gold. Think about Kuwait and gold. I'm just telling you guys flat out, this is aging very well. We're going to place this as well because it's the National Bank of Kuwait. Them and Ripple, them and Swift, think about it. Don't overthink about it. Less than 2 minutes. We'll come right back, wrap it up with Will here in a bit. Here we go.
It's worth mentioning that pre-validation is something that we're proud to say that we are the first bank in the Middle East to launch it and go live with it. The plan is to have it launched and have it integrated with the online channels so that the customer can seamlessly check on the payment before sending it. That's to make sure that our online channels are always equipped with the latest capabilities to ensure that the customers can seamlessly 24/7 access and prefer a payment transfer without having to visit the branch. This will, of course, reduce the returned chances of payment being returned and therefore impacting the customer experience in a negative way when the payment gets back. By pre-checking, you'll have a heads up before sending the payment. And of course, reducing the chances of customers taking a hit on the foreign currency being not to their favor when the payment is returned back. The support was excellent. We had an onboarding manager assigned to us by Swift, and we had our technical team from the MBK's IT's team working together into arranging the APIs and have it integrated with the necessary system. I highly recommend all the banks to join pre-validation. This will help if the whole community adopted this approach. The whole payment flow will be seamless if many banks started adopting by sharing the account status or by requesting the account status from the end beneficiary's bank. This will avoid the return payments dramatically will be reduced, and therefore less operational hassle from each banks to fix up and credit the payments and do the corrections from their side.
Okay, look here, just to pound it home. The whole thing of Ripple and obviously the National Bank of Kuwait, the NBK. So do they have a partnership? Yes, NBK leads the way in Kuwait in partnership with RippleNet to offer instant cross-border payments to, of course, customers. And remember how I mentioned the whole thing of pre-validation? Again, the icing on the cake. This is from Flip the Chain. Why is this important? Well, look what it says here. Ripple effects of ISO 222 adoption is definitely visible. Mentioned specifically here that HSBC has started using Swiss, and here's why I put so much emphasis on that term, pre-validation, while initiating payment. But RippleNet has pre-validation feature since 2018. Also, HSBC mentioned Ripple in several white papers. This one is the final one. I know quite a few videos, a minute 37 seconds. We'll kick it to Will and wrap this whole thing for sure this time. Here we go.
How is the HSBC using pre-validation capability?
Okay, so I think we're doing it in a phased manner, and we're phasing it across both our participation model as well as the customer channel initiation, and I'll elaborate briefly on both. From a participation model standpoint, I think there are two broad roles. You can be a consumer and you can be a responder. So from a consumer standpoint, all that means is, as a remitting bank, I'm giving my clients the option to pre-validate whether or not the information is correct. So in this case, we're connecting to SWIFT, who in turn connects to the beneficiary bank to validate whether the information, say the beneficiary account name or the account number, is actually accurate, or is the bank account actually open. So that's one perspective from a consumer. A responder is simply the opposite. So the responder is the bank that's responding back to the call from SWIFT to validate whether or not the information is correct. So we piloted this, if I'm not wrong, in UAE a couple of years back, and we then, upon some initial success from the pilot, we have scaled this as a consumer, if I'm not wrong, to pretty much every single market where HSBC is present, maybe barring one or two slightly more challenging markets. And on the responder side, I think we're about 7 or 8 markets now, but the markets where we're seeing the bulk of our volume, so we have Hong Kong live, we have US, UK, and a few other large markets, and if I'm not wrong, by the end of the year, that number should be closer to 30 as well. So I think we're really looking to drive that industry adoption because, as we like to say, payments is a team sport and you kind of need the network effect. So that's on the participation model side. On the
And with that said, guys, I'm telling you flat out, I said that was the last part, and literally it is. But just in case you think that Swift is not a big deal, look at what it says in the highlight. I wish we had a report from 2023, 2024, but Swift, look at what it says, members sent 35 million transactions daily. So when we talk about Swift, this is why there's so much emphasis about just that. Swift, I know, numerous examples. Glad to bring it to you guys. I obviously went the distance, but Will, I have to get your closing thoughts. I definitely want to hear what you got to say in regards to this, guys. I think, if anything, Ripple XRP, like Will and I have been talking about, has to have an incredibly high value quant, pretty much all the ISO coins in that regard.
Yeah, it looks like, with the partnership with Swift and the partnerships with Visa, and I know they have partnerships with MasterCard, how much more, how many different ways can you say that XRP and Ripple is going to be the base layer of the financial system without actually saying it? I mean, everywhere you look, XRP. This is why, I invested in XRP. Is when you start looking at it, you just get overwhelmed. They're everywhere. They undergird just about everything. And didn't we see that Ripple's offering some of their services for free? That's pretty amazing. How else do you get your product out there? So I see this as, how much more bullish can I be on XRP? I have I'm still trying to grow my bag. I'm still buying XRP.
Yeah, same here. And I'm looking to also get the ones that are still on sale. I mean, we just talked about this recently. One of the recent cryptocurrencies I bought another bag of was XDC. I bought it at a little under 9 cents on my last bag. My average DC I think is about 2.5 cents now. So some of you guys came in even earlier than that. Shout out to you guys. But whatever the case be, there's so many sales on so many different things. And, we know what we hold. We know why we hold it, right? We've done the research. So that's what we do. We try to provide research to you guys. Hey, listen, guys, I know we went the distance on this one. Sometimes I'm guilty of doing that. But whatever the case be, we wanted to provide you a sense of value, just kind of like, the internet of value. So do us a solid if you listen to the entire outline and simply type in this into the comments, and that is value. And Will and I will know that you listened to the entire outline. We really appreciate you guys. We want you to truly know that we're rooting for you for all your success. Even if you hold tokens and coins that we don't hold, we're not tribalistic. And I also want to state, may the Lord Jesus bless each and every one of you. I'm really, truly rooting for everyone's success. And I know Will is too. So we'll see you guys on the next one.